Hey everyone, it's Charting Man Dan of the Chart Guys. I've been trading crypto the last 6 years. In this video, we're going to go over the broader market just a wee bit. That's the wrong chart that I want to have up. But we're going to check in mostly on the cryptocurrency space with where we stand. This is the first time we've really talked after the dust settling of that headline. And we're going to check in on some of the altcoins, the few that are showing a little bit of strength. And then I'll take a couple requests and see what else you all are looking at. First things first, right now there's a good bit of volatility happening in stocks in the short term on the 5-minute time frame ever since Powell spoke. And you can see it's just, I called it on Twitter, this is a QQQ megaphone, and I called it, I forget what I said, but something along the lines of the piss everybody off pattern, because it just stops out the bulls, stops out the bears, stops out the bulls, and now I'm watching for the potential that it transforms into a 15-minute equilibrium. I find that oftentimes a megaphone, the range will just get so large that the equilibrium then becomes the most likely thing. So as soon as we don't hit a higher high here, I look for a higher low here. And we'll see if the bulls are able to shape that up. But just a little bit of short-term volatility going on in the markets. Bigger picture, we're watching for the possibility that SPY, QQQ, and some of our major sectors are shaping up potential weekly lower highs. So keeping an eye on that. And one of the major stories, of course, is still the dollar. The dollar is trying to roll over, have to break 105.53 for this head and shoulders like pattern to be confirmed. And that would be the first confirmed daily downtrend in months if that were to happen. And also the 10-year. The 10-year just broke to a clear higher high. This is definitely a big point in the bear column. Again, just think of it, when you're looking at these yields, just think of it, if I've got millions of dollars, and we're just talking about whales out there or everybody's collective money, if I've got millions of dollars, do I want to be putting it in something that's guaranteeing 5% over the next 10 years, or do I want to be more risk on in something like cryptocurrency? And so that's what's going on. And same thing with stocks. Do I want to, put my money in the stock market right now, or do I want my 5% guaranteed? So the more that this goes up, the more people are going to take the guaranteed 5%, 5.2%, wherever it goes to. And just look back historically, this is the highest it's been in a decade plus. And if you look back, it was as high as 15% way back in the 80s. So it can definitely keep going as long as the bulls keep control. But again, just view that as the mindset of if this keeps going up, it's sucking in money. And if it starts to drop, then money will look for better returns elsewhere. And I'm in that boat right now. I was just scratching my head yesterday saying, all right, is it time for me to start nibbling on some of these 10-year? Because I'm going to have some capital that I want to get some nice passive income out of. And right now it's in 4-week T-bills, which are like 5.3%. But to lock in something 5% plus over a 10-year period is something I'm keeping an eye out on. And so are many other people. All right. So Bitcoin itself, we had the fake headline. We had the reaction to it. We had a lot of trustworthy sources putting out the incorrect information. Where do we stand now? As I mentioned in the last live stream, which was that the day that it happened? Monday, yeah. So as that was settling, I was talking about how, we are still holding hourly EMA 12. We are still above where we were before the headline. And there were some altcoins that had given it all back and taken out support from the last bunch of hours before the headlines. But we didn't see Bitcoin do that. And so that was a bit of a win for the bulls, in my opinion. And really what's going on right now is just a battle for 28,000. If we just stick a line at 28,000 here, we could see that it was resistance all start of October with multiple rejections, and now it's trying to hold as support the last 3 days. So it's really just, but again, it's one rung up the ladder in terms of being an uptrend. We were battling for 27,000 a week ago, and now we're battling for 28,000. So again, it's a stair step up in that uptrend. So if the bulls can maintain 28,000, the headline comes away as a good thing as far as, not seeing too much of a reversal from that top that was hit. And right now we're battling 29,000 resistance with the double top. So it's essentially just a battle for these psychological levels. The bounce high here was 29. And then this morning we just pulled back. Bears very clearly defending that level. We tested it with 5-minute RSI just getting overbought. The 15-minute RSI was just getting overbought. The hourly RSI was just getting overbought. So bears, fairly comfortable taking an attempt at rejecting the price there from that 29,000. And again, that was Powell speaking that led to that volatility. So the question is are we going to confirm an hourly downtrend? So right now we're looking for an hourly high or low. And if we set it, can the bulls go back up to another 29,000 test, or do we confirm an hourly downtrend and then look back towards another 28 test? I wouldn't be surprised for this 4-hour range to tighten up here into tomorrow and maybe even to the weekend. We know the weekend just means a hard stop for things slowing down significantly. And oftentimes we form tightening ranges right into the weekend. And so 29, a low of 28.1. Now if this is a lower high and we confirm an hourly downtrend into tomorrow or into tonight, then we're going to look for the possibility that we just form a tightening 4-hour range into the weekend. So essentially, 28 and 29 is really what the battle is over right now. The bulls are pleased with where they stand, all things considered. And the bulls want to see the 10-year top out into daily consolidation and the dollar confirm that daily downtrend. Again, yes, Bitcoin has significantly shifted its correlations, but that's something that we always want to see. It can't hurt. It can't hurt for the dollar to drop and the 10-year to drop. All right. Dominance chart still going up. So we know it's still Bitcoin leading the way. So we know most altcoins are weaker than Bitcoin. There are a handful that are stronger. And the dominance chart from here, keeping an eye. I mean, there's no resistance levels to be watching, in my opinion. We're just going to be watching the trends as our guide. This is a monthly bull flag confirming. And so we got, a monthly, weekly, daily uptrend as our guide. And I'm going to be sticking with the daily chart here. At some point, what the bulls want to see is what we've seen in crypto bull markets, which is Bitcoin gain some confidence. And to gain the confidence required here, we're probably going to have to head back to this high of 31.32. But what I'm talking about is we need that confident push from Bitcoin, and then we need that sideways trading while altcoins then play catch up and the profits rotate around a little bit within the crypto sector. Crypto stocks are relatively weaker. We've got some nice tightening ranges. This one on MARA is not exactly in equilibrium, but very similar. Riot is in equilibrium, but broke bear. So again, it's just in comparison to Bitcoin, right now, Riot is approaching, if not testing, the lowest level from the start of October, and that's the lowest level that we've seen in 6 months. And so again, if Bitcoin were doing the same thing, Bitcoin right now would be testing, 27,000, and that level would be, what's the lowest level in the last 6 months? We'd be testing 25 right now. So essentially the miners are testing the levels from when Bitcoin was last at 25,000. So that's what I mean by very clear relative weakness. And maybe it turns into a falling wedge, but I'm not giving these bulls any benefit of the doubt because every bounce here just results in a lower high. And coin is holding on a little bit better than these miners. It too is in a tightening daily range that we can view as an equilibrium. But again, the burden's on the bulls here. We're just trading sideways. The difference is Bitcoin is trading sideways on the weekly time frame near its recent high, and coin is trading sideways near its recent low. So the crypto stocks are weaker than Bitcoin. We can say that much. ETH has consistently been weaker than Bitcoin. Simple statement here is the bulls don't prove a thing on ETH unless we set a higher low compared to 1520 and break 1642 to confirm a daily uptrend. But it's such a wide range. Again, knowing, keep the weekend in mind. We can use the weekend in our technical analysis when we're trying to figure out, most likely scenarios. So is ETH likely to break this range knowing that 24 hours from now, it's going to be Friday afternoon heading into the weekend? In my opinion, it's more likely to form an equilibrium over the weekend in this tightening range. We know we're watching a potential falling wedge on the weekly time frame for ETH BTC. Again, I don't have high conviction for it, but I'm definitely paying attention to it. And we would have to see ETH BTC give us a reason to be looking at ETH to break that falling wedge over looking Bitcoin long. But I'm seeing a possible setup here where, maybe we get just an ETH BTC daily oversold bounce, even if it's just for a few days on a falling wedge bull break. That's a possibility to shape up. But overall, we were watching the falling wedge on ETH BTC, and that is negated. The bears are saying, nope, we're now following through, because every break previously did not see much follow through, and that's why we were keeping an eye out. Is this a falling wedge? And this past couple weeks, the bears say, no, it's not. So very clear weekly daily downtrend guides on ETH BTC. And again, it's shaping up like, a daily oversold bounce will be due here just to look for that lower high. But the stronger altcoins, we keep talking about Sol and Link. And the reason for that is the relative strength. Sol, we were watching for the last live stream, we had this 12-hour inverse head and shoulders, set up the weekly higher low. And then this ended up being a little cup and handle type of pattern. And again, the psychology of the cup and handle is you fail to break resistance. Ideally, the closer the better. When you fail that resistance, what happens? The bulls that are short term, they're taking their profit. They're exiting. Bears are jumping into top fish resistance. And when you then form the bull flag on the break of the double top, you have bulls buying, you have shorts covering. And so, you can make the argument this is a cup and handle. Cup and handles are generally at the top of uptrends. This isn't really a longer term uptrend, but it was at the top of, a couple months of price action. Either way, the weekly uptrend is confirmed. And now the question becomes, again, we know every time we're watching a clear pattern on whatever time frame it is, when the pattern concludes itself, we zoom out and look at the next higher time frame. And in this instance, I go from the weekly saying, okay, first confirmed weekly uptrend in a long time, many months. And now go to the 2-week, just to remind myself, okay, one possible scenario is a 2-week lower high and a continued tightening range into November. So what would that look like? We would have to lose the daily uptrend as step number 1 for a 2-week lower high potentially shaping up. So our new key support is 2311. And if any bull that's in a position right now isn't overly concerned with a 2-week lower high, they're just aware this could shape up. So if I don't want to sit through 2-week lower high consolidation to continue tightening up this equilibrium into the end of the year, I'm just walking my stop loss up, perhaps with every daily high or low. But Sol is one of the stronger coins. As we look at Sol BTC, we just got to the highest level that we've seen. Oh, we tested it. We didn't break it. Trying to get to the highest level that we've seen in a couple of months, but unable to get over it just yet. So that's a little bit of a red flag. Not much. Again, just pay attention. Be cautious, bulls, because if, this is not the ideal scenario. The ideal scenario is that the BTC pairing of the altcoin is either leading the move or doing the exact same thing. Sol BTC right now is a bit behind, which again is not your ideal scenario. That's not the ideal spotlight. So we have to keep an eye on that. Again, if a 2-week lower high is going to be set on Sol USD, it will be Sol BTC weakening that gives us clues that it's shaping up. And just as an example right now, Meta stock has been a really strong stock, and 52-week highs were just hit. But I recognize we just confirmed a monthly bull flag with no follow through. And I also recognize we're close to confirming a daily downtrend. And so I look at Meta divided by QQQ. Again, same concept. Meta divided by QQQ has been showing me relative strength of Meta compared to the NASDAQ for a very long time. And look at the daily chart, potentially starting to shift a little bit. Just like a pattern, we can draw a potential rising wedge. If this rising wedge breaks bear, that tells me the relative strength of Meta is shifting into relative weakness. And that will confirm for me to be paying attention to the bear side for a monthly bull flag confirming with no follow through into bigger picture consolidation. So how does that tie into crypto? Well, again, if Sol is going to set a 2-week lower high, Sol BTC would start to weaken And so we can already see it's not as strong, but it's also not weakening. We can use the low of today as a new benchmark level while we keep an eye out to see if, if over the next couple of days it continues to be Sol BTC weaker than Sol USD, it would continue to give us a bit of a red flag in the short term. But again, this is bigger picture. It could take, another week or two to shape up a 2-week lower high in Sol. So keep that in mind as well. Link is the other altcoin that I'm keeping a close eye on. And I just like the possibility here. I mean, the sideways range that I keep talking about, watch this pattern because it's going to break end of this year or first thing next year. And as the bulls trying to set a weekly higher low here as well. And going into the daily chart, the bulls need to shape up an inverse head and shoulders if they're going to follow through with the weekly higher low. And so we're trying for a daily higher low. What do we need? This is the beauty of the relationship of time frames and how they interact with each other. So what do we need for a daily higher low to be set on a crypto name? We need a 4-hour trend change to the bulls. So I say, okay, I can see here where a daily higher low may be shaping up. The bulls gave themselves some space to work with. We got a bit of a lower wick forming. Let's zoom in for the details. 4-hour. Another inverse head and shoulders. It's the same pattern on a different time frame. So we have to hold this low of 721 and confirm the 4-hour uptrend to set the daily higher low. And then the bulls will try that inverse head and shoulders on the daily time frame. So keeping an eye on the 4-hour. And so what's the risk reward here? Let's just do a hypothetical trade. Link 4-hour consolidations underway. Let's say I make an entry at 731. I put my stop just under 721. We'll say I'm risking 11 cents with a tiny bit of slippage or a little bit of wiggle room. 11 cents risk. What's the reward? Well, if we inverse head and shoulders on the 4-hour, we would need to be clearing 748. Already at that point, that's 17 cents of gain, which is more than 11 cent risk for the possibility. And obviously the ideal scenario would be following through with the weekly higher low and getting above 783, which at that point then becomes, 5-to-1 reward to risk. That would be an ideal scenario. But again, it's just laying it out in terms of, okay, there's clearly potential for significantly more reward than there is risk. What would we need to see Bitcoin do if this is going to be shaping up? Well, I would want to see Bitcoin set a 4-hour higher low, aligning with a Link 4-hour higher low. And if we look at Link BTC, we can see that the bulls got to prove something here as well. This would need to be a 12-hour falling wedge, I think. This is the first time I'm looking at this. But it looks like it may be trying. So I'd be watching that. So do you see how we just laid out a trade game plan and looked at all the puzzle pieces that we need to be watching? We need to be watching Link, Link BTC, and Bitcoin. And so, can Link BTC show us some signs of relative strength shifting? That's critical. Checking out the rest of the list real quick. Yeah, Sol far and away the lead bull today. At this point, we're going to be looking for 4-hour consolidation sooner rather than later. And that's just because we just went 10% without 4-hour consolidation. And this was just stops being triggered by getting over that double top. 25.42 broke. I mean, we broke a bunch of resistance there. 25.68. There's a lot of resistance between 24.75 and 25.68. That dollar range had a bunch of tops. Bulls would love to hold that on the back test. Let's just mark that range and see where the bulls want to ideally hold on a back test. So this is what we would call our resistance zone. And we rejected from the top of that resistance zone. Bulls would like to hold the bottom of it. They're trying. But again, we know that 4-hour consolidation will be inevitable eventually. All right. I'm going to start reading the chat room a bit here. TRX. Definitely one of the stronger coins over the last few months. It's a weekly bull flag attempt, 912. Nope, 911 needs to break. Could this be a cup and handle? I mean, the psychology is similar there. Ideally, I'd like that resistance on the right side to be right up there with the left, but still technically meets the criteria of the pattern. Daily is nice and strong. Really, what we're just looking at here is, do we have to see daily consolidation after this resistance rejection? If we do, we're going to look for a daily high or low above where we came from. 4-hour uptrend is our guide. If we lose the 4-hour uptrend, that to me, essentially, I look at this and I say, okay, we rejected from resistance initially. If we don't lose the 4-hour uptrend, we're staying within striking distance of that resistance. If we lose the 4-hour uptrend, it's a more convincing rejection, and we look for a daily high or low to try and form. And then we watch retracement size. If we retrace 50% plus on the daily, that's a very hard rejection. If we only retrace 382, then it's a potential daily little cup and handle type of pattern. But the 4-hour is nice and clear. High or low just set at 883. And so this is our guide as the bulls try and remain within striking distance of that resistance. MSTR. It's a nice tight range. I mean, if you're looking to go long at this level, you're essentially saying that we're forming, it looks a lot like coin. You're saying that we're forming a base of support to set a monthly high or low. And a monthly high or low is the more likely scenario and worth keeping an eye out for. The question is, where is your stop? Are you using 307.11 as a stop? So again, let's calculate some risk reward. Are we using 307 as a stop, or are we using 314 as a stop? Either way, those are very far away. I'm risking 10% here, and I'm risking more than that down here. So what do I need for reward for that to be worthwhile? If I'm risking $30, I want to see at least $60 of potential upside. It's too much risk for me personally. You know, if I'm looking to play off that support, what I want to see here is an inability to get over this double top right now and a pullback. Then I look for a daily high or low using that level as a stop. And my risk just goes down so much if I can get it on daily consolidation. You know, if I look for my entry at 330 and my stop is 314, I'm risking 16 instead of 30. That's almost half the risk. So I don't love the fact that we're right under a double top and daily support is a bit of a ways away. I much prefer to enter into support so my risk is much smaller, and then it's much easier to get a risk-reward ratio that is favorable for the trade. Nobody wants to enter right here when, you know, it's red 4 days in a row and we haven't confirmed a daily uptrend, but the risk is very small. So now you get a little bit of confidence. Oh, the bulls are showing up the past few days. Bitcoin's holding on. And you have to pay. You have to pay more risk now that you get a bit of increased confidence. So I'd like to see daily consolidation first to just keep tightening up. Whether that happens or not, who knows? There are many times I'll lay out a trade like that and say, I'm going to be interested if we get daily consolidation. And we don't, and we get the bull break. And I say, oh, trade didn't come to me. Move on to the next one. If you're only watching one thing, if I'm only watching Bitcoin and the Bitcoin trade setup gets away from me, it's so much harder to overcome than if you trade 50 things and it's just whatever. Dime a dozen. Find the next one. Thanks, Crypto Grapple. Appreciate the likes and subscribes. Can't look at the 2-year bond. What is that, a Canadian 2-year bond? Come on. What's the Canadian 2-year bond got to do with this? I don't even know what it is. Yeah, lawsuit against Gemini. Worth keeping an eye on. Let's check back in on the NASDAQ. Is it still chopping around 15-minute equilibrium, looking for a lower high? Burden on bulls. GBTC. So what are the implications for an ETF? So first off, I'll say, I don't know, I'm guessing. Second off, we can say that it depends. There's so many different scenarios as to how it plays out. Does only one one application get approved? Or does 7, 8, 9 applications get approved? If it's only one and it's BlackRock, I would expect GBTC to take a hit on that. Also have to keep in mind that, well, I'm not, again, that would not be my area of expertise, the fundamental impact of an ETF on a trust that is traded on the OTC. So I'm not going to go too in depth. I mean, we can always just stick to the price levels as our guide, and the fact that we are hitting the highest level in the last 6 months or 4 months is showing us that the premium is increasing, or I should say the discount is decreasing. Honestly, I haven't looked at that number in a long time, but we could say relative strength recently for sure. The fact that we are hitting that higher high. What will happen to altcoins if the ETF is approved? So money will flow. I mean, the ideal scenario would be money flows into Bitcoin. That doesn't necessarily mean that the altcoins dump. If Bitcoin pops up 5%, the altcoins are probably going to go up, 1 or 2%. It's probably going to be small term beneficial. What bulls want to see is Bitcoin pop up, find a support, trade sideways, and start to establish a new support level, a new base of support, while the altcoins then get a bit of catch up as well. But clearly, all attention will be on Bitcoin for the initial wave of the headline reaction. And just keep it, I feel that because Bitcoin has hung on well from the fake headline, it's just another little bit more pricing in. So keep that in mind as well. If the ETF headline were real, would Bitcoin have busted through 30,000 and be over 32,000 right now? I'm not so sure. We obviously wouldn't have, I don't think we would have dropped as significantly once it came out the headline was fake, but I don't think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be a 10% candle at this point. I could be wrong, but I personally would not be looking for that. All right, I got to wrap it up. I appreciate you tuning in. One more check-in on Bitcoin. Hourly trying to set the higher low. Again, if we confirm the hourly downtrend, it's a more convincing rejection from 29,000, and we scout the equilibrium. So burden on bears to confirm an hourly downtrend at this point. All right, appreciate you watching. Don't forget to do good things. Keep an eye on Sol and Link. Again, we didn't talk bear setups. Bears still have setups out there. I mean, we can go down our weaker names. I mean, look at Atom. Look at the daily chart for Atom. Every bounce, just a daily lower high, a weekly lower high. We just hit the lowest level that we've seen in years. Again, a bear's best friend is an altcoin hitting multiple year lows, and their BTC pairing is doing the same. New low. Just daily downtrend guide. Look at when the daily lower high was set. I haven't even looked at any of these setups, and I know that their 4-hour RSI was likely right up at overbought at the top of that candle there. Atom, not quite as... So yeah, 4-hour RSI getting overbought is marking these tops on daily downtrends. Sand we know has been weaker forever, but it's trying to hold its recent low. So we can distinguish individual names by names that are hitting the lowest levels in the last few months, the lowest levels in the last couple years, or holding the recent lows. That's just a simple way to break things up into 3 categories. So Doge holding the recent low, Atom and DOT breaking the recent low. Keep an eye on QNT. I've been watching this wedge. Again, I don't necessarily have high conviction it's going to break bull, but this is the kind of setup that, we check back in on in hindsight and say, oh, well, there's the bull break on the clear pattern. It's still tight. Again, it's the kind of play where I just want my risk to be real small if I'm going to make an attempt here. And what's QNT BTC doing? Just all bear. That would make me patient. Got to see some sign of QNT BTC has to break the weekly stair-step drop of the last 2 months if that falling wedge on QNT USD is going to be worthwhile. All right. Appreciate you all. Have a great rest of your day.